Hey, what's going on, you guys? Nicholas Moy here, and in this video, I'm going to create a second part to my last video that I posted last week on how you can start working with n8n and build your first workflow. So, if you've been kind of following along in this journey, you probably saw in the last video where we created a manual workflow that required a manual execution trigger. So that's what we see right here. And that pulls a joke from a API endpoint. This is a joke API endpoint, and then it edits the fields and it populates it down inside of the n8n console that we see here at the bottom. In this video, I'm going to show you how to integrate some other nodes, is what we call them, these little boxes here, where you can actually set up a time trigger. So it's not a manual execution, but this happens on a regular basis, either annually or daily or monthly or weekly, whatever you want to set it up to. And it'll send you an email whenever that trigger is executed. So let's say we wanted it on a daily basis. You want to have this thing send you a joke at 6 a.m. every morning. We could have it so that it sets up a trigger that will be executed every single day at 6 a.m. and pull a joke and send you an email. Okay, so pretty cool. And let's go ahead and dive right into it. So what we're going to be building here is this email me a joke workflow. So again, very basic, but it'll kind of introduce you guys to it as you're learning n8n and playing along with this. So what I did here was I set up a schedule trigger, and it pulls down the same HTTP request, the same API endpoint. So it's pulling it from the same location, and then cleaning up the data in the edit field section, and then it sends an email. So I configured it so that it'll send me an email to my inbox every single morning, right? So let's go ahead and dive into it. I'm gonna go ahead and set up a new workflow. So let's go ahead and log in, and we'll create a new workflow. Okay, so now that we have a new workflow in place, first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna say automated. We're going to name the workflow. So in the upper right hand corner, I'm just changing the name, automated joke workflow, right? Let me zoom out. And here I'm going to start with a trigger. Okay, so if you've been watching the last video, I kind of explained triggers. If you didn't catch that, feel free to go check out that last video. So in here, we're going to say on schedule for our trigger. So we have trigger manually, on app event, on schedule. We're going to select on schedule, and then I'm going to zoom out. Now here is giving us the options to configure how often we want this workflow to be executed. So in this case, I'm just going to choose days, but here you can see it can be done seconds. So every couple of seconds, every second, whatever it is you want it to be. Seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, or you can even do custom. We're going to say days. Now, this is going to ask me in the second box here, how many days do I want it to be? So how often do I want to receive this joke, or how often do I want this workflow to be triggered? So I can choose, like if I wanted to do every 3 days, then the workflow will be executed every single 3 days. In this case, I'm going to choose every day just for simplicity. Now here you can say what time do you want the trigger to be executed. So I'm going to say 6 a.m. So every morning. And then here we can even specify the minutes. So let's say I want it to be trigger at 6:15 a.m., right? So you can really specify how, just exactly when you want that to take place. I'll go ahead and save that. So we'll go ahead and leave that there. Next thing I'm going to do is I am going to, let's see, we got to do the HTTP request. So type in HTTP in the search. And then here, we're going to drop in that URL. So I know URLs can be kind of long and lengthy, and there's a lot of complicated characters that go into them. That's going to be the same thing here. It's no different. If you guys need this URL specifically, you guys can hand type it in the video, but I also want to encourage you to join my free school community where I'll have it located inside of the portfolio development module. Again, totally free. This is just an area where you guys can access it. You can even download the JSON file for this, and you can start playing around with it yourself. But the URLs, everything, all the notes is going to be within that section. So just feel free to jump in there. Link is going to be down in the description. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get this real quick. Okay, so I have it here. I'm going to go ahead and paste that in there. Now, the next thing, it gives you some options to do authentication and stuff, which is not necessary because this is a public API endpoint that we're accessing. Sounds technical, but what that means is there's no paywall, there's no password and username that we need to put in, so there's no authentication whatsoever. All we're doing is hitting the endpoint because it's public, meaning that it's open, there's no authentication, and it's going to provide us with a joke. That's it. So I'm going to leave that as is. I'm going to go ahead and say execute so that it gives me a joke. Now, in the last video, I kind of explained how n8n works. You have the left side, which gives you your input, your middle, which is going to be the thing that you're working on, the settings you're working on for the existing node. Notice here at the top, we're working with the HTTP request. That is the existing node that we're in, the settings that we're in right now for those parameters. And then the output is what comes out after we have tested that this node works. So here we can see the output and it gives us a joke. How do you fix a damaged jack-o'-lantern? You use a pumpkin patch, right? Da-da-da. Okay, anyways, we're gonna go ahead and close this out. So I just click out here. Next thing that we need to do is we need to type in edit fields, which is going to allow us to clean up the endpoint input, right? So here we have our setup. So setup is the actual joke that we're asking. How do you fix a damaged jack-o'-lantern? And then the punchline is the second piece to this, which is you use a pumpkin patch. Okay. Now, the reason why I'm calling this out and I'm using a joke as an example is because if you're going to be doing any type of AI automation or any type of AI agent development or anything like that, you do need to have a good understanding of this, of how this works. And this is typical key value pairing. This is something that we've been using in technology for a very long time. This is how we do things within JSON and YAML and all that stuff. This is very, very common. You use this in cloud engineering and cybersecurity and all that stuff. Very common within logs, within computers and stuff. So what we're seeing here is just a fun example of that very technical fundamental that you could be using inside of AI development and engineering and all that stuff. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move this over. So how do you actually manipulate this? Well, I'm going to drag the setup schema field here, or this key, and then I'm going to drop it in here. Now notice here, when I do that, it says, all right, what is the field set to? The field is set to setup. It's a string. And then this is our variable, meaning whatever this is, JSON.setup, it's going to have a value. That's why we call it a key value. So back in math, if you were like, what's mx plus b, and you have to solve for x and all that stuff, the x is the variable that we're solving for. JSON.setup is the variable that equals this string. How do you fix a damaged jack-o'-lantern? All right, if you don't understand that, try and pause it, maybe think about it, maybe reverse your video and watch that again so you kind of understand that. And if you need help, you can reach out to me, drop a comment down below, or ask ChatGPT, whatever. I'm more than happy to help. But this is just like how it was back in math. So back when you were in grade school doing math, same idea. X equals whatever, 12. And in this case, JSON.setup equals this string. And a string just means it's a sentence. It's something that we read. It could be a paragraph, so it could be a ton of words and letters. It could also just be something simple like a sentence, like this, like a joke. Okay, so there's the first field. The second field that we're going to edit is the punchline. So I need both here. So I have my setup and then I have my punchline. I'm going to execute this and it gives us an output. So here's the setup, here's the punchline. And the next thing that we need to do here is we need to type in Gmail. All right, now when we type in the Gmail node, it gives us a ton of options. I'm going to select send a message. And here I already have my credentials set up. Now, if you don't have your credentials set up, it's going to give you a little box saying log in with Google. You're going to do that and it's going to authenticate you. Since I already have mine set up, I don't have to do that. We're just going to go ahead and move on to the next phase. So here it's going to say, who do you want to send this to? I'm going to say, send this to my email, right? Here for the subject, we're going to say joke of the day with a little laughing emoji. Email type, we'll keep it as HTML. And under the message, I like to fix it to expression so I have a little bit more room here to manipulate the things here. And so what I'm going to say is, hey, Nick, here is your joke of the day. And then down here, I'm going to go ahead and drop this setup. Again, taking the variable, which is json.setup, which we already know what that means. It means the joke, it's the setup of the joke. But as this changes every single day, you're going to want a different joke, which is why we don't manually type this out. We just drag and drop that variable. All right, so json.setup. And then we're going to say punchline, and we're going to drag punchline down here. All right, so we'll say joke there. So we know punchline, and we'll say have a great day, right? So very simple. Now I'm going to go ahead and send this, but I want to show you something after the fact so you guys understand how this works, when we mess with expressions and outputs inside of n8n. So let's go ahead and execute this. That's sent. The fact that we got a green check mark, that's a good sign. So now I'm going to go ahead and pause my video, jump into my email, and we'll take a look at the output of that email. Okay, so here we are in my email inbox, and I want to just show you this real quick. So here is the joke that was sent. Hey, Nick, here is your joke of the day. Joke, how do you fix a damaged jack-o'-lantern? Punchline, you use a pumpkin patch. Have a great day. Cool. Now, what if we wanted to reformat this? Because notice here, when I was inside of my area for the expression, and when we're messing with the parameters here, I have it separated out in these different lines. But when we go to our email, the output, it's all one line. How do we clean that up? Well, funny enough, the fact that we're using HTML means that we can actually embed HTML elements into this that would be outputted into the email. If you don't know a lot about HTML, that's okay. There's a couple of things you can look up and embed as you're looking to customize your output. Very, very simple and straightforward. So what I did here was I actually had put in BR, which means break line, and I embedded that throughout to kind of help us with restructuring. So we're going to do BR. I'm going to do two BR, so I have two spaces here, and then I'm going to do another BR and another BR there. So we have two spaces between the punchline and have a great day. Now we're going to execute that step again. We're going to go to the email inbox, refresh. We got the joke, and notice things are a little bit separated. Okay, the only reason why there's no separation between hey Nick and here's your joke of the day and the actual joke is because inside of here we did not add those. Okay, so there we go. Or we did, but we only added one. So there's no double space separation. So if I added a second one, right? Let's add a second one. And then we'll execute the step again and go back here. We can see the spacing. So the first line, I just kind of want to recap here. The first BR that we put in literally returns the text. So if we don't have any BR, everything shows up on the same line. If we have one BR, it's like you hitting the return key and moving your little cursor just underneath. So it just drops it underneath. There's no space in between the two lines of text though, so we're gonna add a second BR so that we have a space, right? So just a little bit of HTML, programming that I'm teaching you guys there, but that's how you can kind of embed that into your n8n, and you can see that now we have a complete working joke that will happen on an automated trigger. All right. Hope this was helpful for you guys. Again, if you want the resources for this, feel free to click the link down below and join my free school community where you guys can access this inside of the portfolio development module. All right. I'll see you there. Have a great day.